Hello and welcome to the Adobe Twitch channel. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. And it's my pleasure to be streaming to you live here at twitch.tv/Adobe on the Adobe channel, where I will be streaming for the next 2 hours. We're going to do this in two parts. So part one is going to happen for this first hour from 10 a.m. Eastern till 11 a.m. Eastern. And this is going to be on 10 things or more, most likely more, but 10 things you've forgotten about or didn't know about Photoshop and Photoshop CC, of course. And these are just, this came up the other day when I was talking with a friend of mine, and he's a Photoshop instructor, and I said, hey, I bet I'm using a tool you haven't used in years, and I'll tell you what that tool is when we get into the content. But sure enough, you said, yeah, I haven't used that tool in years, and that's how this topic came to be. Is I wonder how many other things that we take for granted now don't use anymore, and for some reasons, they're good because we don't use them anymore because they were replaced by better things. But that doesn't mean that some of the tools, filters, and techniques in Photoshop still aren't useful. It just depends on what you need to do. So, for example, this tool that I was using the other day, it was the one that was working the best, and it was one of the oldest ways. It's not the most frequent way that I use or I do this thing, but it was certainly one of the better ways to do it. Oh my God, Scott Kelby's in the house. What's up, man? So, E.B. Luther, I saw Ihojo, if I'm saying that correctly. Ijo, come on in, thanks. And Scott, I was just telling the story about, I didn't mention your name, but you were the one I was talking to the other day about this feature that I hadn't used in years, and I bet you hadn't used it in years, and sure enough, you hadn't. And it started the conversation about the 10 things that we're going to show today, and I think you're going to do a blog post on it as well for your blog. So, and Terminus 1961, how's it going? So, by the way, if you're watching this as a video on demand or a replay on my YouTube channel, you're like, who's he talking to? This is a live show that happens every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. till noon Eastern. And I'm looking at my chat window, which is off to my side here, and I'm saying hello to the people here in the chat. So if you want to be one of those people in the chat, just join me live if you can between 10 and noon Eastern time at twitch.tv/Adobe, and I'll try and give you a shout out as well. So Servant 2000, what's up? Let's see here. Is there in the pipeline working on a Photoshop with full functionality? As soon as iPads give us full functionality, we can do that. You got to remember 2 to 4 gigs of RAM versus 8 or more processors versus smaller processors. So as soon as we get an iPad that runs like a computer, we can give you full functionality. And you got to also ask yourself, do you really need full functionality on an iPad? Do you need CMYK? Do you need all the other things that have been in Photoshop for years on an iPad? So let's start thinking about that before we say, hey, just give me full Photoshop on an iPad. And also, is it really worth rewriting the whole thing for iOS, which is what it would take? So, good question, but there's more to it than just, hey, give us full functionality on an iPad. It just doesn't work that way. All right, so thanks for joining me here live, and let's go ahead and get to the 10 things that I came up with. And of course, there are hundreds of things, by the way, dozens of things that people probably take for granted to use Photoshop on a day-to-day basis, that either A, like I said, features we don't use anymore, or B, features that we used to use but forgot about or would still be useful, or you're new and you're saying, hey, I don't even know what some of these things are. So no matter where you come in on the spectrum, we'll cover some things that I think you'll have some fun with. All right. You do need CMYK for your printing conversion. Well, see, again, that becomes another whole thing on an iPad that probably won't happen anytime soon, if ever. But we'll see. All right, so let's go ahead and switch gears here. I'm going to switch over to my computer so you guys can kind of see what we're going to start off with. We're going to start off with something basic. It's a tool that has been in Photoshop for a very, very, very long time. It's one that we take for granted. It is, and you know what? And I'm also going to set my my workspace back to the Essentials workspace, which will mean I'll have to go around fishing around for some of these things, because then that puts it back to the default toolbar as well, which means I don't always remember where things are because I've customized my toolbar. But we'll find them as we go, and then we'll keep going here and showing you things. So first of all, the first one I'm going to show you is normally when you have your brush tool, of course, there's a flyout for the brushes. And there are all kinds of tools that we take for granted or don't use or haven't used in years. Now, I use the brush all the time. I never, ever, ever use the pencil tool because I don't have a reason to. But that wasn't one of the ones, by the way. The one that we are going to talk about is the color replacement tool. This is the one that I came here, and this is the one that I started using the other day, because I had to change the color of something, and none of my other normal, faster, quicker methods were working the way I wanted to. So the color replacement tool is the first tool we're going to start off with. And of course, then there's the mixer brush, which Victoria uses every day. So that's not a forgotten tool. But let's start off with the color replacement tool. Let me silence my notifications here first. There we go. And I'll put the iPad down here. Okay. All right, so what's this tool? First of all, it's a brush just like the other brushes. And I'm going to go ahead and dial up the size of it a little bit here. And I may even switch gears so you guys can see it, see me paint with it. So this tool is just what the name describes. It's the color replacement tool. So for example, if I were to go in and grab a color, I'll just grab any color out of the spectrum. Let's grab one of the reds. Then that becomes my foreground color. And you'll notice that this brush, here I'll make it a little smaller. This brush has a plus sign in the middle. So the plus sign is basically dictating what color you're going to target to change to the red you just chose. So for example, if I were to target this blue, even though the brush is sticking outside the vase here, the little bowl, it's going to ignore that because I'm targeting the blue. So as soon as I start painting, that becomes my new color for this object, even though I'm painting outside the line, so to speak, and it does not matter in this case. So the color replacement brush is just for what I described. And even if I come over here to the green, it ignores the green because the plus sign is not on the green. So as long as I keep doing a contiguous color here, it will continue to replace that color with what I paint. So that is, and of course I could come in here and do a better job. Let's get in there, and come down here. And I could zoom in, get closer, but you get the idea. So if you ever needed to replace the color of something, like I was doing yesterday, and you need to do it at a brush level, there are all kinds of ways to do it for the overall picture, for specific layers and things like that. But the color replacement tool, a couple days ago, was my only option to do it the way I wanted to do it. So just keep that in mind, that is a tool from the past that still has its purpose. Now, at the top, you have all the modes for this tool. So you have the tolerance, which is a good thing to know, because if you're trying to change the color, like for example, I kind of drifted over here onto the green a little bit. If you're trying to change the color of something and you really want to be very picky, is this a 3D creation? No, this is from years ago, before there was 3D in Photoshop. So probably, no, I was going to say before there was 3Ds in computers, but no. This is just a photograph. But what I was saying is, if you want it to be more picky of the color that it's changing, then lower your tolerance. If you want it to be more broad in the color it's changing, then increase the tolerance right here at the top. And that will help you get the color that you're looking for to change. So for example, same thing, if I were to come over here to the green now, I've still got the red color chosen. It will continue to go wherever my plus sign is going, And even if I paint outside the lines, it doesn't care because that's not the color I'm changing. The other thing you'll note is at the top in the controls there, the mode is set to color. And see, I kind of painted outside the line on that one, and it picked it up as a color it could change. So I could either undo that and start over. And by the way, whenever you're doing these paintings, you might want to stop so that you don't undo the whole thing like I just did. And over here, it doesn't matter because it's all the same color anyway. And stop. And then that way, if you make a mistake, when you undo, you're not undoing everything, you're just undoing the mistake. So I like to say pause or stop or lift the brush when you like the results. So I don't like the results on that last one, I can undo it and come over and try it again. And of course I could always just make the brush smaller so that I'm not going to wreck my edge nearly as bad as I did before. Alright, so a color replacement brush, great for changing the color of objects, clothing, cars, things like that, where you need to change a solid color to another solid color. And what this tool is really doing is, what's the difference between this and a color overlay? This is doing it at a brush level. So like I said earlier, there's a dozen ways to do this, but if you need to do it at a brush level, that's what this brush is for. Is there a shortcut to quickly change the size of your brush? Your bracket keys, your left and right bracket keys next to the letter P on a US keyboard. So that will do it for you. Now, let's say that I missed this and I kept going. So let's say like I missed that little red spot over there and I kept going. So now it's too late to do an undo on that. I'd have to undo multiple times to go back. So if you missed a spot or you did a spot, I should say you did a spot that you weren't intending to do, then how would I fix that now? Well, again, people will say, well, you should have duplicated the layer, then you could have backed out of it some kind of way. And you're right, you could back out of it some kind of way that way. But here's another tool that I haven't forgot about. I use it all the time, but a lot of people still don't realize it's there. And it's the history brush. The history brush, think of it as undo on a brush. So for example, if I were to just go in and undo this one little part using history, I could go in and fix that where I kind of got a little carried away and I wasn't paying attention. So the history brush is your undo on a brush. And that isn't a forgotten one. That isn't one of the 10. It's just I wanted to remind people that the history brush was there. Now, there is something history related that is part of the 10. We'll talk about in just a minute. But I just wanted to make sure you guys knew about the color replacement brush and the options for it. Now, I'm going to show you what's the difference between the color replacement tool and just the regular brush set to color mode. So if I can achieve the same effect if I were to just go to the brush tool and go up to mode and set it to color, just like the color replacement tool. Watch what happens. It does it. Yay! But it doesn't care about edges. So if I were to, there's no plus sign in the middle of it. So if I were to go over something else right next to it, if my brush were to extend, here, let's go all the way back. All right, let's do this. See how it doesn't care that I'm going over the green? It doesn't have any breaks whatsoever. It doesn't have anything that says don't go over this color. Then I would have to be very careful to make my brush smaller when I'm getting close to that edge to make it that color. So the color mode is really just changing the midtones of a photo. It's not changing the highlights. It's not changing the shadows. So that's why I could paint on white, because white is considered like a highlight and it doesn't do anything. But if I paint over any other color, it doesn't care when I use the brush tool. So if you wanted to change them all to red, then the person that said, well, couldn't you just use a color overlay? Couldn't you use this? Couldn't you use that? Absolutely. I would do it a different way if I just wanted the whole thing to be red. But if I need to do it at a brush level, that's why I use the color replacement brush. All right, and the color replacement brush, as opposed to the regular brush, allows me that plus sign in the middle that says I won't go over things, I'll try not to go over things that don't match the color that you originally sampled with the brush. Now, let's go back to that tool one more time. Brush, color replacement. And this is the other big, here, let me undo all this. This is the other big thing that's different about this tool as opposed to the other tool. So, for example, I can do discontiguous, which means I can paint things that aren't touching that match the color. Or I could do find edges. I can also change my sampling mode. So for example, sampling continuous means that every time the plus sign touches a different color, it just goes to start coloring it. But if I say, I think it's sample once. Yeah, sample once or background swap. So let's do sample once. That will be way more particular about, okay, whatever color you first click on, that's the color it's going to change. And notice it's not letting me change any other color. It's not letting me go up here unless it's the same exact color as below. So it's not letting me do the rim at all. But in this case, it's basically one sample. Wherever you first clicked, that's the only color it's going to allow you to change until you let go and click a new color or touch a new color. And then it will continue to only do that color and no other color until you either A, continue to find that color somewhere in the photo, or B, change your point. Well, pearly cream cheese, whenever you say, I do it this way, my response is always going to be, great, do it that way. In Photoshop, there's at least 12 to 200 ways to do everything. So if you've got a way and you look at this and say, oh no, I'd never do it that way, that's great. Do it your way. I'm doing a specific thing here to show people specific lost features. That's it. I didn't say best way. I didn't say only way. So if you got a way that works best for you, by all means, do it your way. All right, so with that said, that was the first one. Let's go to another one. I'm going to close out of this photo and not save it. And we're not going to use that one just yet. We are going to use it, though. Let me find a better one to do this next one on. Let's see if I can find a good one for this. Now, this next tool is one that I don't use. I don't think I ever use it, because it's just okay. It's not, it was one of those things you would have done back in the day, but you don't use it anymore because there are better ways. So let me show you what it is. I'm just trying to find a good photo to use it on. Okay, we'll do it on Trevor. All right, so we got Trevor on a gray background, really a white wall that's darker, so it's turning gray. And in this case, I want to separate Trevor and put him on a different background, or basically get rid of the background. Now, today, I would not use this tool for this. But that doesn't mean that this tool doesn't have a purpose. So let me show you what the tool is. It's an old tool, still here, still has a purpose in some rare cases, but not necessarily the best way to do this. All right, so what I want to do, I want to point out first that you notice that Trevor is on the background. He's not on a layer, or not on a layer that can be made transparent. I'm going to switch over to, as a matter of fact, I'll have to find it here because I never use it. There it is. Okay, so you got the eraser tool, and the eraser tool is one of those tools that if you're on a background and you erase, then it's going to erase with the background color. So my background color is white. It's erasing with white. I rarely ever use the eraser because now we have masking. So if I really wanted to hide something non-destructively, I'd use a mask to do it. I rarely ever permanently want to erase the pixels. However, there was a tool, there was a tool back in the day, prior to Refine Edge and all the other methods we have now, called Background Eraser. And Background Eraser, just like the Replace Color tool, has that little plus sign in the middle, that little target that says, I'll erase whatever color you target, and I won't touch the other colors. So, and again, it has a tolerance. So right now the tolerance is set to 50. And I'm going to just make it bigger here. And if I were to go in and notice that half the brush is on his face and half the brush isn't, the target is on the gray. Notice what it does. Now, see, I went too close to his hair, so it got his hair. But if I go in there now, I can erase background without erasing subject, depending on what the background tolerance. So let's drop the tolerance a little bit here. Let's do this. Let's try that now. There we go. So now it ignores his hair because it's not close enough to that gray color. So why would you do this? I don't know. You're in some weird space where you need to erase something and you can get the tolerance to work just right. Or I think the last time I used this was I needed to erase the color between some leaves. And this did work fairly quickly and fairly easily because there was such a stark difference between the leaf color. The problem with this method is it is permanent. You are erasing these pixels. You are erasing this background. And you can tap, by the way. You don't have to brush. So I'm just tapping on these colors to go in and erase and get near them. And as you can see, it also doesn't always do a great job, and you have the potential to miss things. So this is why we don't use the background eraser as much as we might have back in the day, because there are other, better, faster methods. But we are just taking a look back in history on some of the things that we used to do and the pain points we used to have. But it can do it. If you've got the patience and the time, it will go in and take your subject, or remove the background, I should say. And notice it made it into a layer because it had to. You're telling it to remove the background, so I didn't have to unlock the background first. And that's just it. All right, and again, Lil Wizard Mark. Meh, I just used the Refine Edge and Mask. I agree. I said that up front. This is not a you should do this. This is showing you tools you may have forgotten about. So again, I get it. I didn't never once again, I never said do this instead of what you're doing. This is another way. And you may have a circumstance where, again, rare, that this would work for whatever it is you're doing. So, not the only method, another method. Refine Edge is my go-to. It's the one I use every single time. But there may be a circumstance where I need this someday. And if I need it someday, it's nice to know I've got it. Okay. So that is the background eraser. Again, one of those forgotten tools, haven't used in years. It's probably a good reason we've forgotten it, because now there are better ways. But if you ever need to erase the background, it's there for you. And there's even a magic eraser tool. And this one here, let me revert the photo. The magic eraser works just like the magic wand, except instead of making a selection, it makes it based on, it erases the background based on that color. So if I were to click, in one click, it took out that color. Go here, and again, it took out that color. Now, in this case, with a solid background, that's way faster than the background eraser. But there it is. It quickly did it in a case where that was even faster than I would have done Refine Edge. Maybe not as good, but certainly faster. And if I go in there and zoom in, I can even get that little part maybe sticking out right there. All right. What about moving the sky between leaves? What about moving the sky between leaves? That is where I've used the background eraser before, long ago, but yes, it does work that way. All right, so background eraser, magic eraser was a bonus one. All right, let's go to, here's one. Here, I'm going to close this. And let's just open up. Let's open up this one. All right, we'll zoom in on this. All right, I'll see what I can do about the half-second audio sync on the next stream when we break in an hour. Duly noted. All right, there's a tool that I used to use. I'm sorry. There was a tool that I didn't use before because it would damage the photo, or it would be quick to damage the photo in a very bad way. However, that tool got an upgrade to the engine behind it, and now I use it all the time. So this is one of those cases where this might have been a tool you never used, or you didn't use, or you tried it, and then you forgot about it because it was so bad back then. And now you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can use this. This tool works great now. All right, so here's the tool. I'm going to show you why we stopped using it, or why we didn't use it in the first place. I want to sharpen her eye, and I'm on the sharpen tool. Sounds like a no-brainer. It lets me paint and go over specific areas of the photo. I don't want to sharpen the whole thing. Yeah, I can sharpen the whole thing with a filter, apply a mask, and all that. I get it. But if I just want to sharpen something like the jewelry or her eye just with a brush, then I've got a sharpen tool to do it with. So I'm going to lower the size of the brush just a little here. And this is why we didn't use it. I'm going to show you the bad way. So if I do this, okay, it got sharp, but it got sharp too quick. Matter of fact, it's starting to destroy the eye. And heaven forbid I go over it again. Now that eye is toast. Go over the jewelry. And as long as back in the day, as long as I used it just for a split second and didn't go any further, it was kind of okay. If I went too much, you get this. And you're probably saying, well, Terry, just don't go too much. Just don't do it more than once. Don't do it more than a second. And then you would say, yeah, okay, right. And you just wouldn't do it because you'd find other better sharpening methods. So this is why the sharpening, or the sharpen tool, was one of those bad tools. Just don't use it. It'll destroy your photo. It might destroy a part of your photo and you didn't even notice it until you print it and things like that. So the sharpen tool used to be bad. It used to do this. This is why we stopped. Now I'm going to undo those. Or here, let me make sure I just revert the photo. I will make sure I revert it all the way back to the beginning. All right, revert it. Now, you notice the sharpen tool has a feature at the very top there called Protect Detail. That's the new engine. That's the new thing that makes this tool usable. It's normally on by default. I just turned it off quickly so you can see how bad it used to be. Protect Detail makes the sharpen tool way more useful. I use it all the time now, especially in my portrait retouching. If you overdo it, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to scroll. If you overdo it, just like anything else, it will still overdo it. But it's a long way between just one or two strokes and it overdoes it. Like you'd have to seriously try and overdo it. So in this case, for example, if I go back to this eye and I'm now on the Protect Detail and I sharpen, the eye gets a little sharper. Sharpen again, the eye keeps getting sharper. Now again, there's going to be a point, if I keep going, yeah, it's going to destroy the photo. But I have a lot more leeway, that was 3 times now, before it actually starts to look horrible. Whereas before, without Protect Detail, 2 seconds in and it starts to look bad. So same thing here, go over the jewelry. That was 3 strokes, that was 4. 4 is probably too much, let's undo it, go back 1. Same thing on this eye, we'll sharpen this eye a little bit. And of course, you could duplicate the layer and make a copy before you do it so that in case you ever want to go back, you can. But sharpening with the sharpen tool is now way more useful. And that might have been one of those tools you forgot about back in the day, and for good reason, because it would quickly destroy your photo, and then you're like, oh, I'm never using that again. And then now you haven't tested it since we added the protect detail to it. So that's a tool I use on every single portrait retouch because I want to sharpen the eyes, jewelry, things that should be sharp, maybe even the lips, depending on the lipstick or art around the lips. But anything that should be sharp, I'll quickly go over just a few strokes with the sharpen tool, and I don't have to worry about it screwing up the actual pixels or the photo. All right, so that was sharpen. That was number 3, I believe. Let's keep going. Let me get back to my list. Oh, this is going to be a fun one. And this is one I honestly, this next one is one I honestly forgot about. Not because it was bad, just because just hadn't used it in a long time. And it got rewritten along the way too, to where now it's even better than it was back when I did used to use it. All right, so let's go ahead and close this. Oops, close the wrong window. Hang on. Oh, I closed my notes. Hold on. It's on the wrong window when I hit that command key. All right, let's go over here. All right, the next one is, there we go. All right, so let's close this photo. Now, there we go. Right one. And I had one that I wanted to use for this. Let's go to my Adobe stock folder. We'll use this one. All right, let's make this bigger. And I've got this, this is an Adobe stock photo, not one of mine. And I like it because the person not only did a good shot with the lighting, and they also did some nice effects with the clouds inside the drape, or I'm sorry, inside the dress. I want to say drapes. But good job overall. Now, the tool that I'm about to show you, let's see here. What did I just see? Hey, Jan, how's it going? 77 degrees Fahrenheit in Oslo is always a good thing, good day. But anyway, let's get back to this where, notice the light. And as a photographer, I can tell there's a light up top. She's looking up into it. It's fairly evenly lit all the way down, which we tend to want some fall off as the light goes down the subject. And if you wanted to relight this in photography, you would have to set it all up and shoot it again. But Photoshop has had a way to relight photos for years. And I used it quite a bit. Then I just, for whatever reason, stopped using it. And then I think it briefly went away because it needed to be rewritten in Photoshop. Then I really stopped using it. And that was it. But it made a comeback. And it made a comeback in Photoshop CC in a good way. So first and foremost, I saw some talk earlier about just, working non-destructively. And of course, we like to work non-destructively whenever we can and whenever it matters. When I'm doing a quick demo and I'm going to close it without saving, I don't think about working non-destructively because I'm just showing you a tool or a technique or a feature. But I guess in good practice, I should be showing you non-destructive workflows whenever I can because I don't want to teach you or give the appearance of teaching you to work in a bad way. So let me show you in this case in particular a good way to work non-destructively with what we're about to do next. I'm on the background and I'm going to go to my filter menu and I'm going to say convert for smart filters. What that will do is it will turn the background into a layer and more importantly turn it into a smart object. So now that background is protected. I'm never going to damage the pixels of that background. And now I can do anything to that container or that wrapper without affecting the pixels in a bad way. So I want to run a filter on it. And the filter I want to run is one that we haven't used, or I should say I haven't used in years. It's the lighting effects. Now, lighting effects has been in Photoshop for as long, many years as a filter. And I'm going to go ahead and just choose it. And it will come up with whatever I set it on last. So that's the one I was playing with last. It was a custom preset. Let me switch it back to the default. Let me go back to, I don't remember what the default was, but let me go, oh, there it is, default. Okay, let me go back to the default. So that's the default that it would come up with. Now you notice what it's doing. It's allowing me to put light in this photo. It's basically treating the photo as if it had never been lit before, and then allowing you to adjust the light accordingly. Now, of course, it can't. If you expose part of the photo where there was a bright light, a harsh light, that harsh light's still going to be there because that's built into the pixels. But at least this gives me the ability to kind of control or basically add my own second light and control the lighting of that light. So, for example, I can go in, I can reshape this. I can move this around. It's live. This is kind of cool because the new interface is in fact live. We don't have to render this out anymore. You used to have to render and wait for this to happen before you could actually see it. And I can go ahead and twirl this down. And so now I'm getting the kind of fall off that I want it. And I can even dial up or dial down the light intensity. Let's get that just about where I want it. So I can make that dress appear more like wings if I wanted to. Dial it down just a little bit more. All right, and of course you can change any particular attributes of the light you have. You can add more than one. You can use the presets that are here, and these look like the same presets that have been here for years and years and years. 3 lights down, triple spotlight, RGB lights. Yeah, these are all the same presets in the filter that you've known for years. And I guess it's one of those things that if you take it out, then people will complain, hey, I use 3 lights down all the time. Why'd you remove it? But anyway, you can control the aspects of the gloss of that light, the metallic nature of that light. And this is all adjustable as we go. The ambience of that light. So the ambient light coming out from the sides. That's really cool to be able to adjust it this way. Even the color intensity of the color and the intensity of the light. So if you want to put a different color light on that, you could. So this would be, if you had used a gel and you want to gel the light a different color, you could. I'm going to cancel that, but you could play with that. So the lighting effect has not only been rebuilt, to be modern and 16-bit and all that stuff, but it's actually really cool and fast now. I remember this used to take forever if you were going to go ahead and do it and render it. Now I'll click OK. And it'll take a few seconds. Nowhere near as long as it used to. But once it's done, it's done. That's it. We're out. So Adobe should put this engine in Lightroom. Okay. All right. So here's the reason why we did it as a smart filter layer first. Because now that's a non-destructive lighting effect. Light, especially if you're gonna do this much of a drastic effect on your photo, you definitely want a chance to go back and change it if you want to change your mind. So that's one of the reasons why I definitely wanted to show this in a non-destructive way in case I do want to change my mind. So first and foremost, if I don't like it, turn it off. Get right back to the original photo. If I like it, turn it on, but I want to make an adjustment to it, then double click on lighting effects and get right back to where you were. So if I want to dial that light up some more, dial it up some more, click OK. And I'm back to where we were. So that was, and by the way, most of the filters now, if not all, I haven't checked every single one, but most of the filters now should honor the smart object or smart filter layer function first. So, and I definitely use it all the time when I'm using the Camera Raw filter. But if you're doing this, this gives you the ability to play with the filters, not make any permanent changes, and if you want to play some more, not having to start over by, let's say you had duplicated the layer and run it without smart filters. Then you would still have to, are these effects and tools or filters that work in 16-bit color mode? Okay, I'll answer the 16-bit color mode in just a minute, Jan. But as I was saying before, if you had done it the old way, duplicate the layer, run it, and say, aha, I don't like it, throw away that layer, and you wanted to try something else, you would have to start from scratch. you'd have to go in and make a new layer and try it all over again, and hopefully you remember the settings so you can make slight changes to them. As a smart filter layer, all I got to do is double click to get right back to where I left off and make any adjustments I want from there. So the question was, yeah, definitely, Elizabeth, it'll be great for bad lighting on band shots. But anyway, 16-bit mode. So usually, and again, I don't want to say a blanket rule because I haven't personally tried every single one, but usually, if a filter's been rewritten, meaning it's got the dark UI, it's got the modern UI, big previews and all that, then chances are that filter will work in 16-bit mode. If it's the old interface, the little bitty preview, the white interface or light interface, then chances are it hasn't been rewritten, and chances are it doesn't work on 16-bit photos unless it always did. So you have to try filter by filter. I'm going to dare say that most of them are 16-bit compatible now. I just don't want to say they all are, and then you come back and say, well, this one isn't. So I just haven't tried every single one to know for sure. But in the case where you see that new UI, so if we go back here, where it's a big window, it's resizable, it's got the big preview, it's got the dark user interface, that's a good indication that it's been rewritten, and that's a good indication that it'll work on 16-bit photos. All right, because the other filters used to be a little window, little preview, little controls, and light interface, and those are old filters. They still work, they just may not work on 16-bit photos. Okay, so that was lighting effects. And I hate to ruin this photo with the next thing, so let's go ahead and close it. I'll leave you with a good impression on this one. Yeah, right. And Ken, it will absolutely be grayed out if it doesn't work on a 16-bit photo. So if I were to, I think I know what you're asking here. If I were to go ahead and open up a 16-bit photo, or even go back to that photo, let's see here. And let's change our mode to 16-bit. Now, I changed it from 8 to 16, just so you know, I didn't magically add in, I didn't magically say now this has got more data, it's a 16-bit photo. I just changed the mode. It's still an 8-bit photo in 16-bit mode. But what Tony brought up a good point is that if it doesn't work in 16-bit, now it would be grayed out. So for example, all of these are still available, which means, yep, there's a few that aren't. Hang on. Yeah, see, there's still a few stylized filters that haven't been rewritten yet, even though oil paint I thought had been rewritten to be 16-bit, but apparently not. And so if it's grayed out like that, so there's like 4 filters so far that I see that aren't 5. Oh, it's not 16-bit. Oh, lighting effects. Okay, I was wrong. You can't go by the user interface. So best way is to just open up a 16-bit photo and check it. Smart Blur, for example, not 16-bit. So if you ran into that where you wanted to use a filter and it's grayed out because it's in your photos in 16-bit mode, then you got to make the choice. What's more important? Running that filter or keeping my photo in 16-bit until the filter is rewritten. So in this case, if I were to go back to 8-bit, now I should be able to run anything because they all worked in 8-bit mode. Okay, oil paint, something else is going on there. I don't know why I can't run that one, but oil paint and everything else should work. It might be the size of the photo. All right, so that is, that's to bring up Ken's point that if you try it and it's grayed out, that's because it's in 16-bit mode, usually, except for oil paint. All right, next. Let's see what else we've got in the chat here. Yep, I know it's not in Smart Object mode because I just reopened it. What screen/monitor are you using? I'm using a Wacom Cintiq 27 QHD. Can I run the filters in 8-bit and convert the document back to 16-bit afterwards? You can, but you're not gaining anything. Once you go down to 8-bit, you threw away that data. Going back to 16-bit doesn't bring the data back. So it's just like, can I make a photo that's 2,000 pixels by 2,000 down to 100 by 100? Yes, you can. And if it's not a smart object and you go back up to 2,000 by 2,000, you're interpolating that data. You're not bringing back the original data unless it was a smart object. All right. Good questions. All right, next. Yeah, okay. So I was going to do this next thing. All right, let's see what's a good photo to do this on. Okay, yeah, we can do it on this one. All right, got a beautiful scene here, another scene from Adobe Stock, and Moraine Lake, Rocky Mountains, Canada. Wow, I'd go there just to take this photo. But anyway, got some nice skies, mountains, tree line, water, all the good stuff. But what if you wanted another tree? So under your filter menu, this is not old, this is actually fairly new, but this is one of those you may not know it's here. If we go to our filter menu and we come down to render, there's three fairly new CC filters called Flame, Picture Frame, and Tree. If I go to Tree, but before you go to Tree, make sure you create a new layer first. Hang on. Let's create a new layer first. Okay. So make a new layer first, and then we'll go up to filter, render, and tree. The reason you make your new layer first is because if you don't make a new layer, it will put it on the background. You won't have any flexibility to move it around, size it, or do anything else. So putting it on a new layer first means any one of these things you render will be on its own layer. So made the new layer, layer 1, go to tree, and that brings up the tree filter. Now the tree filter will render a custom, depending on what you do, one-of-a-kind tree, because you have infinite possibilities with the light direction, leaves amount, leaf size, branch height, branch thickness, so forth and so on. You can, of course, load in presets. You can, of course, even go into an advanced mode and do other things with the tree. But there's so much flexibility here that you literally can have a tree that no one else has. So, for example, there are different kinds of trees. Let's see, that might look good here. Just to add some color, I can go in and say that I want more leaves, and it'll give me more leaves. I can go in and say that I want bigger leaves. It'll give me fuller or bigger leaves. I can say I want less. It'll give me less. So I'm kind of looking at the trees over there in the background. And I can go to maybe get some higher branches, different branches. So every time I move this dialog box, it will render out a new version. So no, you're likely not to have any two that are the same unless you really give someone the exact numbers you used and they use those numbers. Skinny branches, thick branches. All right, we'll make it skinny. And we'll click OK. Arrangement. Hold on. Just want to see what that would do. Kind of like it that. Nope. All right, more like that. Like that matter. We'll click OK. It will render out my tree. A beautiful tree, by the way, on its own layer. And now I can pick up that tree because it is on its own layer. I can do whatever I want with it. So I could say that, hey, that was just in the foreground, on the ground that we don't see, not in the water. Or I could size it. Command T to free transform it. And put it off to the side. And size it down. And basically add some scenery to a scene that not only didn't exist, but maybe even not really likely to exist in this particular region of the world with that kind of tree in this area. So that is the tree filter. Again, one of those things that came out. That's correct. Adobe CS6 does not have this feature because it came out in Photoshop CC. And it's one of those things where it's rarely do we find something, a filter like that, that actually makes you believe that, yeah, that's a real tree sitting there, because it renders it so good, and you can again change any aspect of it you want after the fact. Now that is on its own layer, so I can say, hey, that's my tree or pink tree layer. I forgot the name of the tree. Pink tree layer. And now that layer is just a layer. I can do whatever I want with it. I can run filters on it, apply adjustments to it, do whatever I want. So, mind blown. That's incredible. I know, right? So here, let's do it one more time since you guys like that so much. Let's make another new layer. And filter. Now, if I go filter tree again, by the way, you always have this replay feature, I like to call it. If I do that again, it'll just do the exact same thing again. So I don't want to do that. Instead, go to filter, come down to render, and start over again with tree. And that will take you back to the last one you did. But now you can make changes. So I can say I want a different kind. I want, I don't know. What are we feeling today? How about a redwood? No, we got redwoods already. Let's do a palm tree. We'll do a palm tree in the middle of Canada. That's believable. All right, so we got this palm tree going on. Oh no, I'm running out of time. I gotta hurry up. Okay, so let's change our light direction, change our leaves amount. All right, we click OK just for the sake of time. And we got this nice, beautiful palm tree that we can now scale and put off to the side here. And yeah, that's believable. Now the lighting's different. I should change the lighting direction on that one. The lighting's bad, so that would look probably better over here, where the light's coming in from the sun. So we got that one lonely palm tree over there. All right. So the tree filter, been there, and of course, very cool to use. Okay, so let me quickly get through my rest. I only got like 8 minutes left. Wow, this time went by fast. All right, so let's get through the rest. I think I only got through like half of the ones I wanted to show. Where's my workout person? There she is. All right, tree filter. Go try it out. This one is an old filter, and I still use it from time to time when I want to quickly just fake a drawing, meaning I want this photo to look like it was a drawing, not a photo. Now, that's different than painting. That's different. This is just a quick filter. There's nothing really, nothing more to it than what it is. So you go to filter, render, and I'm sorry, not render. You go to filter, stylize. Find edges. Find edges has been around for years. There are no controls for it. You just run it and it does this. Basically just converts your photo into a drawing. Some photos will work better than others. Some colors will work better than others. I don't like what it did to her skin, but that's pretty much what that filter does. There's no other commands for it, no other controls for it. It's an old filter, but that's what it is. So find edges, try it out when you're trying to make your photo look like a drawing. And it will find the edges of your photo and allow you to control it. Now you can play around with the contrast and all things like that after the fact, but that's it. All right, we'll close that one. This is another one that often goes overlooked because people are afraid of it. So I'm just going to click my type tool. It will give me my cursor. I'm just going to go ahead and type the word water. And we'll type the word water. We'll make the word water bigger. And we'll just, we'll change the color of it to maybe something like that. Okay. So I've got this text here now, and I want that text to kind of stand out in a unique way. We see this in TV shows all the time now, where they have a scene that the camera's floating over, and then you see the name of the scene or the name of the city in nice 3D text. So if we go to our 3D menu here,